the most edutainment podcast that streams live on Facebook into your face, into your ears, so that we can educate you and entertain you, and we can show you. I'm going to infringe on Disney here. You ready? We can show you a whole new world. All right, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of the Raw Islam podcast with the hardest working imam that I know, Imam Azhar.
Assalamu alaikum. Greetings and blessings to all our listeners tonight on a Tuesday, October, and I don't even know what the date is. October the 15th. We're halfway through, only 15 days
14.
left.
15? 15, yeah.
Yeah, and only 15 days left for goblins and witches and apple bobbings and trick-or-treating and toilet papering people's houses. Not forget the eggs. I'm joking. How's everyone doing tonight? Carl, nice
Bidda.
to have you all. I know there's a slight time change with the different 6 months, and once it does, inshallah, at that time we will have a stable showtime for all of you to come and to, of course, participate and to contribute your words towards. I have a toothache tonight, so please forgive me if I'm not speaking straight, but nevertheless, Carl, what was the poll today? Oh, yeah, I forgot there was no poll, Carl. Could you tell us why someone went in the box of shame today, Carl? Because some of our listeners want to know what happened, Carl.
Well, if anybody got the number of that bus that just ran me over, no. In all honesty, there was some food poisoning issues around my house this last weekend, and with it being a long weekend, I got distracted with family illnesses and everything else, and the poll just did not get posted, and it was completely my fault, and I take full responsibility for that. But it doesn't matter because we're here and we're live. And tonight we're going to talk about, and I've already lost it, we're going to talk about,
Something
no,
is lack of training an excuse?
yes, is lack of training a legit excuse? That's what it was.
Uh, and that's really where we want to start off, Carl. And do you know why I kind of selected that topic? Do you have an idea?
I do not, and I was actually very confused by it, and I was hoping you would enlighten me.
So, if you all know, or you don't know, you should know, and you will know now, that another African American, this time a lady, was shot and killed here in Fort Worth while she was sitting in her home. She was in her home with her child, I believe, or grandchild, and a police officer shot from the outside and killed her. Her house is located next to a mosque. And when we say next to a mosque, literally next to a mosque. And what baffles me is when people say our our officers don't have the level of training that they need in our world today to combat. Oh, you're ex-military, like you've been in the military, but Carl, how is it that we can continuously produce weaponry and different types of body armor and different types of toys, as I'll call them, for officers around the nation and train them as to use them, such as tasers? Remember those days of tasers? There was such a big discussion around tasers because we were going from like pepper spray to like semi-lethal tasers. And when that discussion got done and every officer got a taser, all we did is start shooting guns. Like you don't hear about people getting tased as much as you do get them getting shot. And a taser can cripple a person. Why is it that you have to shoot the person to an officer jump behind a tree, or does the officer stand in the front lines trying to save people? So what toys out there that they're introduced to? How can you tell me, Carl, and I'm going to ask you this point blank, how can you tell me, anyone tell me, that the officer wasn't trained in understanding the situation? I think that's baloney. I really do. You know, do we have to be trained on every single thing in life? Do we have to be trained on how to eat our food? Yeah, you could be trained on how to use chopsticks. I totally get that. You may have to train your child of how to use a spoon and a fork, but for goodness gracious, we are adults. And you're talking about someone sitting in the safety and comfort of their home in their castle, and they're shot to death. They're shot to death. And the excuse is the officer really didn't understand. Carl, I just don't understand because you know what? I wanted to discuss this issue in light of what the Quran says. People on this earth, as Muslims, we know we've been given sufficient, um, we've been provided with sufficient knowledge and resources and access to it that we should not say tomorrow, I was ill equipped, I was ill trained, I wasn't prepared, I was thinking next year was the exam. When God gathers us on a day of judgment, there's no excuse. And the reason that God's not going to give any excuse is because all the options for someone to present an excuse will be provided, and thus there will be no excuse. God will test you with goodness. God will test you with pain. God will test you with health. God will test you with poverty. God will test you with people, and God will test you in solitude. You're going to be tested in all ways so you can acknowledge and understand that there's a God and there's someone to serve. As Muslims, we've been taught that. So no one in their right mind can stand up tomorrow. No one in their right mind can stand up tomorrow and say to God, I really didn't understand this. And so I want to use that understanding in the faith and make it contemporary in our world. Like I could jump into a store and slap you with a gun and break your teeth and say, sorry, I didn't know better. This I don't know better is being announced, is being proclaimed, is being shouted out from those upstairs, from the guys who should know. But they hold those who are downstairs highly accountable, even though they don't know. A person, I don't know what state it was, she robbed a jacket or something. She got 20 years for robbing a jacket, or it was like $100 or something. For God's sakes, what's happening to our nation? And here she has a legitimate need, and here's someone who's been trained, who's been taught to what? To serve humanity, to serve the city and its people. And now you can get on a press conference and say, well, he's been fired, he's been charged with murder, and we're trying to build a relationship with our officers, with our communities. You're supposed to have a relationship with your communities. You're supposed to be proving that you are invested in upholding that relationship. So, Carl, with all these shootings and all the officers doing exactly the same thing that those no good for nothing white supremacists are doing on the streets of America, how do we bring a balance between a person who you could say is a junkie, someone who has no understanding and just harbors hate of people of color, and someone who is wearing the badge, wearing the uniform, is being paid by our taxes, a person who has been given the job to protect, and they're shooting and killing people? Carl, I've put too many questions on you. I want you to make sense of this, and I want our listeners tonight to make sense of this, because to me, it doesn't make sense at all anymore.
So here's where I go all. I'm gonna touch on a bunch of little neat little topics tonight. You ready for this? So, a uh, in regards to Sharia law, I said that. I said Sharia
Oh, you
law.
said the S word.
I did. If I'm not mistaken, under Sharia law, if somebody is caught stealing, the first step is to figure out why they're stealing.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're stealing like a jacket to keep warm, I believe you're supposed to give them that jacket and help them continue to be warm and take care of them as part of the community. That's my understanding of Sharia law. Now,
Well, Sharia
no,
law
go
on
ahead.
that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead because my next is another topic. So please.
So, based on Sharia law, if someone is hosting you, like you're hosting me or I'm hosting you, and I'm not providing or facilitating for you your basic needs, you have the right to take them from me, even if you have to steal it from me. But I want to put that in the concept of a society. In each society, when the rich pay taxes, it's so that the rich and the poor, the ones who have and the ones who don't, the ones who seem that they have no need, and those who are needy, can be taken care of in the confinements of that city. That's why our taxes are paid for. That's why our roads should be paved equally on the east side and the west side, and that crime should be down on the west side as it is on the east side. And so, if there is homelessness, if there is problems, if there's poverty, and someone has a legitimate need, the city that they reside in, that they work in, that they facilitate uh, their where they live sorry, or where their children go to school, it's the society's responsibility to help them. Carl, I was in New York over the weekend. I was talking to someone on Long Island, and they were telling me that the taxes, property taxes, like 17 grand. Here you're talking about 10 to 12 grand in Dallas. Florida it was like 4 grand was a lot. 2 to 3 grand, kind of common in some of the small houses. We're talking about thousands of dollars going from each house every year in property taxes. And then you talk about all the other taxes we pay. And you want to hold someone responsible for a jacket? For God's sake, go give Burlington Coal Factory $100, but stop keeping this lady in jail for 20 years. Why are you keeping her there? Because someone's making money out of it and someone's benefiting from it and they're feeding you also. And that's why you want to keep on scratching their back. So, Carl, the system is messed up. The system is messed up. And what we're doing in these 4 years of this presidency is legitimizing this messed up system to be professional, to be right, to be correct, to be the right direction. This is exactly where it's going wrong, Carl. After these 4 years or 8 years, God knows, when the next president comes, they could be as eloquent as Buttigieg or as educated as the Chinese individual. I forgot his name. Chang, I think it was, right? What was his
Yang,
name?
Andrew
Right?
Yang,
Yeah,
Yang.
and guess what? America will be like, we don't need that. We need someone who doesn't speak right, who doesn't walk right, who doesn't treat people right. To us, that will be the standard of goodness, and I fear that's exactly what's going to happen. But to your second topic, Carl.
Sorry if that was a little loud. The mic volume got away from me there. We do have a comment from, and forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong. I'm going to go with Umi, I guess. We have a comment from Umi on YouTube who says, yes, that is, yes, that's such a beautiful part of Sharia law. There is so much mercy in it. So,
Yes,
but
it is. It is.
no,
Thank
you're
you.
right. But to my second point, and this is where I'm going to go all left wing crazy on you. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
So, after 9/11 and the Department of Homeland Security creation, there was a joint venture given between local police departments. And let's be honest, I come from a small town, as you know, and a lot of people come from towns and they know their police officers and they know small town police officers. You know, you went to high school with these guys. You went to college with them. They're your friends. I mean, these are guys you know. They're not random people off the street that are trained in the military like I was.
Mm-hmm.
These are just guys you went to high school with. And because of this creation of this Homeland Security and part of the joint ventures that were given, our police officers, Ed that was on the soccer team in high school with you,
Mm-hmm.
now has full access to military grade weapons,
Mm-hmm.
including tanks and guns,
Yep.
and so that they can keep the streets safe.
Mm-hmm.
Why a person in a town of 200 people needs or 2,000 people needs a tank is beyond me. But the difference is I spent a year intensely, 60 hours, 70 hours a week training on these things, training how to use them, training how to deploy with them, training for the safety measures, training to be sure that all the safety measures were in place. And you can't just take this equipment and you can't just take this thought process and just freely hand it out to people, because that's when bad things happen like this. And they're saying this officer in Texas this time, he didn't even identify himself.
Uh-huh.
They said he just went up to the window and said, "Put your hands up."
Within seconds,
Yeah.
and killed her.
And I
And
mean,
was she in the military before?
I don't know if she was or not, but what I was going to say is I can tell you again, I come from a small backwoods country town. My graduating class was like 50 people, and it was the largest graduating class in years.
Well,
And we hunt. I know guys that hunt, and not for sport, not game hunters. I know guys that hunt just so they can eat. These guys are hunting just so they can eat. They have, because I mean, if you get a good deer, it'll feed you all year long,
hmm
and that's what these guys are hunting for, is for food. That's what they're trying to
hmm
do. And I know if you creep up in towns like that, and this was really surprising to me, being that it was Texas. If you just randomly roll up on somebody's window and you're like, "Hey, put your hands up," that's never ends well. But for
Yep.
this cop not to identify himself, to just shoot first and ask questions later, there's too much of that, and we need to stop. It needs to stop. Common human decency. Why didn't he look at her and say, "Hey, what are you doing?"
I'm in my house playing video games with my child. Like, what's your business? What are you doing?
Yeah. But instead, he just said, "Put your hands up," and shot her.
So let me tell two things here, Carl. I'm gonna stop you on this. I'm sorry. I want to impose on the Muslims tonight the reminder. I don't want to say impose. I want to implement. I want us to implement what our religion told us and imposed on us, basically. Number one, mind your own business. When we talk about adultery, when we talk about robbery, when we talk about fornication, when we talk about alcohol, you cannot look in people's houses what they're doing in their houses unless it is happening outside the house. God forbid there's a fire coming out of the house. Now it's your business. But there is a fire in the house, in their fireplace, none of your business. There was an incident where the Amir al-Mu'mineen, one of the caliphs, walked into someone's house because he saw the door open. The guy had alcohol and he had a woman with him, and he left. And the guy told Amir al-Mu'mineen, the caliph, later that I would have taken your eyes out because you looked into my house. It's none of your business. And he realized that. And number two, this excuse in our world that I'm not educated enough and I don't know enough is bogus. You got everything in front of you. You better learn. If you're not going to learn, then why are you in that field? Why are you even given a gun? Soldiers in Israel are trained better how to use their guns than American soldiers are, and they go through rigorous training. And that's a fact. That's really a fact. You don't see them shooting randomly on site whoever they want. Yes, when there's some tension going on, there's shootings, and whoever doesn't like what I'm just saying right now, do the math and actually go look at the facts. The facts are there. They don't just shoot first, but there are some who do. This, when we talk about cop training, we're not talking about Israelis versus Americans. We're talking about police training. Training is provided to the highest degree when it comes to guns. You walked onto her property when you walked up her driveway to the side of her house where the car was parked. You walked up. You went in. You're already trespassing. There was no call made for you to come. So the second reminder I want to give to our fellow Muslims tonight is you cannot say to Allah tomorrow, I didn't know. If it doesn't work tomorrow, it better not work today. And you and I, as Muslims, need to live by that code, and we need to make sure the society lives by that code. That's what Allah says in the Quran. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Go ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. You don't make sporadic decisions on the off the cuff, and cost people their lives. Like, when are we going to take the taking of lives seriously? It's becoming an epidemic in this country. It's like chicken pox. You don't count them anymore. They're just all over your body. And when it pops up on your butt again, you're like, yeah, that's just another one. This is terrible. And we're so desensitized from this gun violence that we are actually legitimizing it. Look, when people say that they're using AK-47s for hunting. Carl, you've hunted for deer. Who uses an AK-47 for quails and chickens and deers? Tell me, what do you have left if you shoot up a chicken or a deer with an AK-47? Could you explain that to me, please?
Absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
You have totally wasted the meat, you have wasted the animal, and in fact the guys I was talking about prior, these guys that hunt specifically for food, they actually prefer to use bow and arrow. because it's just a direct shot, and it doesn't spoil the meat, and it doesn't, everything's fine. And it was funny because, and I know I'm about to trip into politics here, but it's not intentional, I promise. But I have a family member who is an avid Fox News watcher,
Mhm.
and I was speaking to them recently, and they were like, "Yeah, and that one candidate said he was going to take all my guns away," and I said, "No." What he said was, "I'm taking your assault rifle, like an AK-47 and M16, away,
Mhm.
and it's a mandatory buyback, so you're not going to lose your money on it. You're still going to get your money back."
Mhm.
And the person was like, "Oh, wait, what?" And I looked at him and I said, "Not." And this person doesn't have an AK-47. They don't have an M16. I know this for a fact. But I was like, nobody uses that to go deer hunting. Nobody is using that because you would ruin the meat. You would ruin everything. So what does it matter? I said, if you're using those, you might as well be in war, because that's what those are designed for. They're designed for war. They're designed for killing mass people. And nobody's doing that. So no, you can't. And in fact, I'll tell you, you brought up quails.
Mhm.
The best way to go quail hunting is with a thing called bird shot.
Yep.
And bird shot is one bullet, and it's got hundreds of little lead BBs stuffed in it, and it
Mhm.
just sprays, because it only takes one of those little BBs to kill a quail.
Correct.
So why do you need an M16? What are you hunting?
I'll tell you, Carl. Let's be straight here. We're not in the business of beating around the bush with our listeners. You're hunting human beings. You're hunting human beings. Come on, let's be real. Look, if you're gonna buy a big piece and you're gonna show it off, just say it. I'm here to kill people, right? That's what it is. You're picking up those guns because someone has indoctrinated you to hate people. Mexicans, immigrants, foreigners, black people, Asians, whatever you want to call it, but that's really what you're doing. Let's stop taking such a subject matter which is so contentious and not hit the finish line. The finish line is, I'm going to hold on to my AK-47 because I'm going to kill people. That's really what you're trying to do. No one carries around AK-47 unless they're in war and they are an active battlefield, and that's reserved for our military officers, the men and women in uniform, and they're the ones who have the right to have it, no one else. And if you're going to walk around in America with them, that means you have no intent of safeguarding anyone. You have intent of taking life. You're just waiting for the right moment in time. And all these shootings are just testers to see, is now the right moment? Has America shut up enough that we could continue doing this? Or is America going to keep on talking and we just have to wait a little longer, a little longer? In the meantime, let's just stockpile on our weapons a bit more, and let's just wait a little longer so we could go out and kill people. Fine, kill the world, take the country, and what are you going to do with it? 200 plus years ago, Columbus did not discover America. There were people living here when Columbus got here. You could say Adam and Eve discovered America. To buy that. Columbus did not discover America. You don't discover something where people are already living and actively prospering with their lives and raising their families. But what's hurting me is the notion of hate has gone too far. And if no one puts an end to it, the beast is already coming out under the covers. And the wolf is coming out of the sheep's skin. No one should act surprised when it does. It's a sad reality that in a nation where we have everything right, our roads are right, our payment processing centers are right, our banking systems are right, our schools are right, our stores are right, our law and order is right. Everything in this country is right compared to so many other countries. But you just have to ruin it, don't you, when you say we still need our guns? There is no need for gun. This is not a lawless society. This is not the Libya that has become, nor is this the Benghazi that has become, nor is this the Damascus or the Homs or the Syria that has become. This is a thriving, prosperous, loving nation. And if you're in love with your guns, something wrong with you. Carl?
So I will disagree with you on one point,
Sure.
which is, I mean, I agree with everything, but it's okay to own guns. It's okay as long as they're normal guns. Because I know there was somebody, it was they were interviewing him on. There was a story on the news in the last 2 months where there's these wild boars
Mm-hmm.
and they're roaming and they roam in packs. And obviously they're not like where I am, and they Washington D.C., and they're probably not in downtown where you are either. But in the countryside, these packs of these wild boars are just traveling around, and I guess they're vicious and they attack and they cause a lot of problems. So if you're in the country and you're hunting for food or you're hunting for self-defense against packs of wild boars, it's okay to own a firearm. But if you live in downtown Houston, you don't need an AK-47 to go to Walmart. I've seen those photos, and there's no need of that. There's no need to strap on a 6 shooter or a 9mm pistol in downtown DC just to go to the IHOP to get something. That's ridiculous. There's no need of that. And I mean that's the only footnote I would make, is that I mean I'm all for people owning guns, but within reason. Because like I said, if you because it's a true story. My stepmom would go jogging with a 9mm strapped to her leg. Now,
Mm.
why? Because one day she went out jogging and she rounded a corner and there was a mountain lion standing there looking at her.
Wow.
That's why she jogged with a 9mm. But she
Wow.
doesn't take it to the grocery store.
Well, see, Carl, just to reiterate, if they're in love with their AK-47s, then there's no need to have it. That's where I'm saying the beef is. That's what they have that for, is to kill people. Yeah, you're carrying your 9mm, you're carrying a shotgun for hunting or something. That makes complete sense. And where there's wild boars, you better have guns because those things will kill you, right? Those type of threats are 100% legitimate. But as you said, you're in a city surrounded by many security measures and many great officers that should be trained on how to take care of society. There really isn't a need to walk into a Walmart, into a Subway, a Waffle House, or wherever else you're going with guns. Like, that's a sign that you perceive someone or something to be a threat. I'm not going to grab my umbrella unless it's raining, or if rain is in the forecast. I'm not going to grab my gun unless I'm in threat or I perceive that there is a looming threat. And I here can say to you, I don't think there is either here. And if you think the ISIS soldiers being released right now from northern Syria are going to be here tomorrow, give me a break. Stop using these fanatic tales. And I believe that's all a big spoof and it's a big storyline being made. Or ISIS soldiers have been released. Have you seen that video, Carl? They look like a bunch of hillbillies just running around. They don't even know where they're coming from. And you're telling me these are the kingpins and warlords of ISIS, that they're just running around haphazard in different colored jumpsuits? Come on, give me a break. This is not how it works. This is all just a show. It is to incite fear in society. If America has taken care of their job in Syria and ISIS is defeated, as our president said, then we don't have to worry about ISIS, right? They're not coming here tomorrow. You should work with your Muslim allies to identify who ISIS may be coming from overseas. And if they ever come overseas, if they get a visa at a time when getting a visa is practically impossible for people living in this country, forget getting citizenship, and they can get on a plane from any country, where American security measures to every airport, major airport, where people are coming to America, the security measures are much higher than they are here in America. Are you telling me they're just going to jump on the next flight with their American Express and just come across? Come on, guys, give me a break. We have to be real. Let's start talking real. Let's start thinking real. And let's be real because remember, we are only harming each other. We are not harming anyone else but our own. And when you say, and I've said it before on our show, when you start saying that we are not America, I'm American, but that person's not American, that's exactly where we're going wrong. Carl?
So before I hand it back to you for closing thoughts, because I see we are at the half-hour mark, um, I will just add that no, ISIS isn't a threat to us. Didn't you see the president's statement? All
Hmm.
the ISIS guys are going to go into Europe. It's Europe's problem, not ours.
Exactly, exactly. I hear
And
you on that one. I
Imam
hear you on that one.
Azhar, your final thoughts.
Carl, final thought is, you know, we need real conversations, Carl. We're coming up to our 100th episode. And if anyone has listened to any of these 97, Carl, possibly 97 episodes, they realize we're not here taking sides. We're not taking sides of a political party over another, nor are we taking sides of a religion over other religions, nor are we taking side over a football team over another football team. Although I have to admit, I don't watch football, but um, Dallas Cowboys losing to the New York Jets while I was up in New York this weekend was quite painful because I was pointed out for that, and so I had to admit it. Yes, we lost by two, but nevertheless, we don't take sides here. We want, and we're not taking America's side over the world, nor are we taking the world side over America. But brothers and sisters, we're all one family. And if that's too hard to digest, what can go down our throats right now? Our own kind, our own ideology, our own opinions. What is palatable to you in a world today that's so contentious? What is palatable? I want to leave you tonight with that question. What can I listen to? What can I participate in? What can I sit back and observe? And what is it that spikes my blood pressure, makes me stand up and object, and start speaking out? This is a question you need to ask yourself. And then once you answer the two, what's okay and what's not to you, you need to ask yourself the follow up question. Is my scope on my human family correct or not? If I'm standing up for my likes over my dislikes, then you've already fractured humanity. Humanity is just replicating what you've already done. May God help us all, and may God be with the families of those who have lost their lives due to unnecessary gun violence that did not solve a single problem, nor did it win a single war in the history of humanity. Amen. Carl?
Amen. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode. Before we sign off, I will remind you that if you have questions, comments, thoughts, you can absolutely email us right here, rawislam@vennetwork.org. Or if you're a clever individual and you'd like to call and leave us a voicemail or send us a text message, you can do that at 202-930-5175. Feel free to call over there, leave a voicemail. We may play it on air just so you're aware of that. And while you're cruising around the internet, make sure you head over to VennNetwork.org where you can check out all of the shows on the Venn Network. Check out all the shows on the Venn Network, and you can pick up some cool swag like what I'm wearing, and you can help support the network, help support the shows, and so we can continue to bring you this fine programming just like this, and you can help us reach more with the important information that we have here. So until next week, ladies and gentlemen, I will say, I actually want to. Well, hold on. I want to say thank you to Umi for their comment in the on YouTube tonight. Thanks for that. And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will say, Assalamu alaikum.